Right, so it is day 85 of my resolution to plant a tree for every single day of the year, and the sky is actually looking like it might give us a nice storm to finish off March with. So let's get on with this quickly and see if we can get it in before the rain. Right, they do say that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is a sure sign of insanity, so we'll see about that. So this is a Parinari keratilefolia, and you may remember I planted one previously if you've been watching this for long. And it has not thrived. It got very sunburned, or possibly the root damage that it got in transplanting was just too much for it, and it's looking very dead. Whether it is dead or not, I'm not sure, but it's been taken off the list because it is not thriving. But at the same time I dug that one up, I put another one in a bag. Well, I put quite a few more in a bag from the same area where a bat had clearly been eating them, dropping them, and something the bats do to them does seem to make them germinate a lot better than they do if you try and germinate them yourself. Is there a whole cluster of little seedlings, and I dug quite a few up, put them in bags, and 2 of them have definitely taken. And so this is one of them, and it's very important to get them out before they get too big because their roots will very quickly outgrow the bag, and then transplanting them without damaging that root and possibly dooming them will be very, very tricky. Because it hasn't rained much recently, and because we do tend to get a hard pan low in the soil, and because this is a very deep-rooted tree whose roots do need to head down in order for it to establish well, I've dug deeper than I need to and backfilled that with water before I started filming, and then I'm going to cover that up with soil until that is above the level of the water, so there will be a damp layer for the roots to head down into. I don't want that water coming up to where I'm going to be putting the succulent companion plants in, but I do want sufficient water that it will be humid down below this plant, and it will sort of attract that taproot down, and it should be able to head through the hard pan without any problem before we dry out too much, whether the storm hits us or not. There is a whole lot more to say about this tree, but I did go on about it quite a lot of length in the planting that I did previously, so I will link to that in the description if you want to go and look at that one. I'm putting in with this one a nice little piece of Dracaena fragrans, which will serve as a backup tree if this one doesn't take, but we're not counting it for now. We will switch through if the Parinari doesn't, and that should shade it quite nicely while it's small and tender. I'm also putting in 3 small Dracaena reflexa, which will also keep the wind, keep the sun from being on it too much while it's small and fragile. We're also going to be putting in 3 pieces of aloe arborescens, the Krantz aloe, which will basically, again, spread out, create a nice dense thicket around the base of it, stop anything from damaging it when it becomes a sapling. Finally, we're putting in 3 pieces of the Cotyledon barbaei, which is the Bushveld Cotyledon, which is, as with the calincos, relatively toxic, so it should stop a lot of insects and smaller things that won't be bothered by the prickliness of the aloes coming through and damaging the seedling. And all of that should, again, build a nice thicket around it, and that should be nice and dense and cool, and it should keep the roots of this from getting too hot, because although that taproot is going to head down, there are going to be feeder roots spreading out around in the soil, collecting a lot of the nutrients from the surface. So yes, so that should be everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this one goes better than last time. And please tune in again tomorrow when I will be planting something else. I don't know what yet. Right, so this is a little hated beetle, not by me. So this is a blister beetle, and you really don't want to get it on your skin, and a lot of people really don't want it on their fruit trees or vegetables. But I find a lot of trees, things like the guavas in particular, and also peaches and date palms and various others, produce more flowers than they can really support decent fruit. And so having a little beetle that occasionally eats the flowers can actually sometimes improve the quality of the fruit. But also, most of the time, it's not actually going to damage the flower to the point the flower can't fruit. And because it's a fuzzy little thing and it mostly goes to flowers, it collects a lot of pollen on its thorax there, and that then gets deposited on the flowers that it goes to visit, that it doesn't eat to death. So it can act as a very effective pollinator and a sort of quality control supervisor in one fuzzy little package.